All right, let's talk about something that affects literally all of us, antibiotics. It's this whole complex, high-stakes world that we usually don't think about until we really, really need it. But the strategy behind it, it's as intense as any battlefield. So picture this. You're sick, you go to the doctor, you walk out with a prescription. Simple, right? But have you ever stopped to wonder how they picked that one specific drug out of this huge arsenal of hundreds? I can tell you it's not a lucky guess. It is a calculated, strategic decision in a war that's been going on for nearly 100 years. And that right there is the absolute best way to think about this. It's a constant back and forth. We develop a new weapon, and the enemy, in this case bacteria, figures out a way to defend against it. So what do we have to do? We have to go back to the lab and build a bigger, better weapon. This is the story of that relentless arms race. So here's our battle plan for today. We're going to start with how doctors choose the right weapon in the first place. Then we'll jump back to the very beginning, to the discovery of penicillin, and watch this arms race unfold in real time. We'll meet the big guns, the heavy hitters of the antibiotic world. We'll face off against today's superbugs. And we'll wrap up by talking about why using these precious weapons wisely is so critical for all of our futures. Okay, first up, choosing the right weapon. This isn't just about picking something that works. It's about picking the right something. The goal is to defeat a very specific enemy without causing a bunch of collateral damage. And to understand that, we have to go back to the beginning, the penicillin foundation. This was the shot heard around the world in our war against bacterial infections. So how does this stuff even work? Well, it's actually pretty brilliant. You can think of penicillins as these tiny molecular saboteurs. They find these very specific proteins, the penicillin-binding proteins, that bacteria use to build and repair their protective cell walls. By latching onto this construction crew, the whole process grinds to a halt. The wall gets weak, it can't hold up, and the bacterium basically just falls apart. Game over. But of course, one weapon is never enough for every battle. So that original penicillin was quickly adapted, modified, and expanded into a whole family of drugs. You've got your natural penicillins, which are still the top choice for things like strep throat. Then we developed aminopenicillins. You probably know amoxicillin, which gave us broader coverage for common stuff like UTIs and ear infections. Others were specifically engineered to take on nasty staph infections. And eventually, we got these broad-spectrum workhorses for the really serious, life-threatening infections. And here's where the story takes a turn. The bacteria, they started to fight back. They evolved. They developed their own counterweapons, these enzymes called penicillinases. And what did they do? They could seek out the penicillin molecule and just shred it before it could do any damage. Our revolutionary first weapon was already starting to fail against some of its targets. The arms race had officially begun. So the bacteria leveled up, and that meant we had to level up too. This brings us to the next major offensive in the arms race, the cephalosporin generations. Now this lays out the arms race perfectly. Just look at the evolution here. The first generation? Great for skin infections. The second generation got better, adding coverage for respiratory bugs. By the third generation, we could start targeting Pseudomonas. That's a really tough bug. Then the fourth gen comes along as this broad-spectrum powerhouse. And finally, the fifth generation gives us a specialized weapon designed to take on the notorious superbug, MRSA. Each step was a direct response to the enemy getting tougher. And this quote just nails it. This progression, this generational warfare, was all about getting better and better coverage, especially against what are called gram-negative bacteria. You can think of those as the bacteria with extra body armor, an outer membrane that makes them way harder to kill. Each new generation was like an armor-piercing round, designed to get through tougher and tougher defenses. But okay, what happens when even those aren't enough? Well, that's when it's time to call in the special forces, the real heavy hitters, the big guns. Let's meet two of these elite units, and they have totally different tactics. On one side, you've got macrolides, like the Z-Pack. These are like assassins that sneak inside and shut down the bacteria's protein factory, so it can't build or repair itself. They're amazing for these weird, atypical bugs that cause certain kinds of pneumonia. On the other side, you've got the fluoroquinolones. These guys are more like commandos that go straight for the enemy's command center. They get in there and just shred the bacteria's DNA. This makes them incredibly powerful against a huge range of enemies, including that fortress we mentioned, Pseudomonas. And then there is the last resort. When absolutely everything else has failed, when you're facing down an enemy that can resist almost everything you throw at it, you call in the heavy artillery, the carbapanims. These are some of the most powerful, broadest spectrum antibiotics we have, and they are fiercely protected as our last line of defense. So let's talk about those superbugs. Because bacterial evolution has created some truly formidable foes. Two of the most famous villains on the battlefield today are MRSA and Pseudomonas. MRSA is kind of the celebrity superbug, right? You've probably heard of it. It's a strain of staph that, through a clever genetic mutation, completely re-engineered its own defenses. It's become resistant to many of our most trusted frontline antibiotic weapons. It is the poster child for an enemy that has evolved faster than we can keep up. So how did it get so ridiculously tough? This analogy is just perfect. Think of a normal bacterium like a knight in a suit of plate armor. Our standard antibiotics are like swords. They can find the gaps between the plates and get the job done. But MRSA upgraded its defense. It threw out the plate armor and replaced it with a seamless, smooth ceramic shell. Our old swords, they just can't get a grip. They slide right off. That ceramic armor is its special altered protein, PBP2A. So how do you beat seamless ceramic armor? You don't try to smash it with a sword. You need a totally different tool. You need something like a thermal lance that can melt its way through. And that's exactly what ceftaroline is. This fifth-generation cephalosporin is like that specialized thermal lance. It's uniquely shaped to be able to bind to and disable MRSA's advanced armor. It's an incredible feat of bioengineering designed for one specific deadly purpose. And all of this brings us to what might be the most crucial point. We have to use these incredible weapons wisely. Every single time we deploy an antibiotic, we're essentially training the enemy. Misuse and overuse puts our entire precious arsenal at risk. Look at this number. It is staggering. In the US today, resistance to macrolides, yep, those common Z-Paks, is now over 25% for the bacteria that cause the most common type of pneumonia. Let that sink in. For more than 1 in every 4 people who get sick, that first-line go-to treatment might just fail. And this isn't some abstract future problem. It's happening right now. So what happens when our normal go-to drugs don't work? Well, we have to move up the ladder. We're forced to use more powerful and often more dangerous antibiotics. Take those fluoroquinolones we talked about. They are highly effective for sure, but they also come with what's called an FDA black box warning, the most serious kind, for some really scary, potentially permanent side effects. We're talking tendon rupture, permanent nerve damage, even aortic aneurysms. And that's why the message is crystal clear. These have to be reserved for serious infections where there are literally no other options. So, how do we manage this global crisis? The World Health Organization created a really smart, simple framework called AWARE. It puts all antibiotics into 3 buckets. Access drugs are our reliable, first-line agents that should be used whenever possible. Watch drugs are broader, more powerful, and need to be used with caution because they can drive resistance. And reserve drugs? Those are our last resort options, like ceftaroline, that need to be protected like the crown jewels for the most critical infections. It's our global strategy to preserve the weapons we have left. And that's really the question we're all left with. This arms race, it isn't over. In fact, it never stops. As bacteria continue to evolve and develop new defenses, we have to do 2 things at once. Use the incredible weapons we already have far more wisely, and at the same time, keep innovating to develop the next generation of therapies. Because the next battle, well, it's always just around the corner.